I speak from the fractured lines of modern belief, where certainty is engineered and doubt is rationed to the masses through polished interfaces and authoritative voices that never reveal their sponsors. This is not paranoia wrapped in rhythm, but an audit of incentive, power flows, and psychological leverage applied patiently across generations until resistance feels irrational. Truth was not erased violently because delation creates martyrs, so it was diluted, fragmented, and submerged beneath a flood of competing narratives optimized for confusion rather than clarity. Every institution learned the same lesson at the same time, which tells you coordination was unnecessary once incentives aligned and obedience became the path of least resistance. You were taught to argue outcomes while never questioning architecture, trained to fight symbols instead of systems, faces instead of function, scandals instead of structures. The conspiracy is not a secret meeting in a room, but a shared understanding between power centers that predictability is more valuable than loyalty, and compliance outperforms belief. Fear became a renewable resource once they discovered it could be harvested daily, refined into policy support and redistributed as moral urgency. They learned that panic shortens attention spans, and short attention spans eliminate memory, which means no crime ever accumulates long enough to be prosecuted by history. Information was never censored outright because suppression is visible, so it was instead buried under volume, contradiction, and constant emotional agitation. The algorithm does not lie because it has no values, but it will amplify whatever destabilizes cohesion. If fragmentation increases engagement metrics, you mistake chaos for incompetence, but disorder is often the most efficient delivery system for unpopular outcomes that require a plausible deniability. Wars no longer need declarations when economic stress, psychological fatigue, and narrative saturation can dismantle societies internally without triggering defensive unity. Citizens were quietly rebranded as users, then as data points, and finally as behavioral clusters whose future reactions could be price traded and exploited. The greatest psychological operation was convincing people that manipulation requires malice, when in reality it only requires optimization. No one had to hate you for this to happen, because indifference scales better than cruelty and leaves fewer fingerprints. Media became weather rather than information, shaping emotional climates instead of delivering facts, because people will tolerate storms if they believe they are natural. Education was redesigned to prioritize what call over reasoning, compliance over curiosity, and credentials over competence, ensuring dependence on authority never declines. Every crisis arrives with pre-written solutions because the response is always more valuable than the event itself. Surveillance succeeded not because it was hidden, but because it was normalized, gamified, and reframed as convenience rather than control. Privacy was not stolen because theft implies resistance, so it was traded willingly for frictionless living and social validation. The illusion of choice remains intact as long as all available options led toward the same outcome through different emotional routes. Political conflict functions as a pressure release valve, allowing anger to circulate harmlessly while structural power remains untouched. They do not silence dissidents directly because ridicule, deplatforming, and algorithmic invisibility are cheaper and carry no legal consequences. Every generation believes it is more informed than the last, even as its autonomy shrinks, because access to information feels its power until decision making is removed. Language itself is weaponized by redefining terms constantly, ensuring debates never converge and consensus becomes mathematically impossible. Moral outrage was converted into a currency that burns hot but fast, preventing sustained focus on systemic abuse. You were encouraged to personalize failure, so structural exploitation could continue without precision. Economic precarity was framed as personal inadequacy rather than policy design, ensuring shame replaces solidarity. The system does not need to crush rebels when it can't exhaust them, distract them, and eventually integrate their aesthetics without the substance. Conspiracy theories are tolerated when they are incoherent, contradictory, or sensational, because noise protects signal better than silence ever could. The most dangerous questions are not forbidden because panic creates curiosity, so they are instead answered prematurely with shallow explanations that discourage deeper inquiry. Acknowledge promised liberation, but the dependency depends tools aberration, moving thoughts will remove agency over time. Automation was introduced as efficiency, but its real function was behavioral.